I'm here with Imaad Majeed. Hello, Imaad.
Hi. Good to see
Imaad
you.
is in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and joins me to talk about a poem by Charles Bernstein called In a Restless World Like This Is. So I'm going to play a recording of Bernstein reading the poem, and then we'll talk about it for just 5 minutes. So here we go.
In a restless world like this is. Not long ago, or maybe I dreamt it or made it up or have suddenly lost track of its train in the hocus pocus of the dissolving days. No, if I bend the turn around the corner, come at it from all three sides at once, or bounce the ball against all manner of bleary-eyed fortune tellers, well, you can see for yourselves there's nothing up my sleeves, or notice even rocks occasionally break if enough pressure is applied. As far as you go in one direction, all the further you'll have to go on before the way back has become totally indivisible.
Imaad, this
Yes.
poem seems very active and urgent, but it also doesn't seem to go anywhere. Can you talk about the poem's directionlessness? It's sort of confusing direction idea?
Yeah, to me, the phrase from all three sides at once coming at it, this poem speaks of all these sort of dynamic turns. And yet he says, you can see there's nothing up my sleeves. He's not trying to he claims he's not trying to catch you off guard in how it's moving, but there is a certain stillness and sort of almost meditation that's happening here.
And what's so cool about it is that usually art that is digressive and confusing has something up its sleeve. Usually it's part of artifice. But he's found a situation, it seems to be a post 9/11 poem about being in Manhattan. It seems to be, and it's certainly written in response to it. It's a poem about, for once in the artist's life, he really has nothing up his sleeve, and yet one cannot get a sense of direction. Does that ring a bell to you? Does that sound right?
To me, this poem keeps reminding me of the events of last year in Easter, actually, in Sri Lanka, where things came to a sort of standstill. When
and
we
you
had,
went in exile, actually. You left the country for a while.
Yes, I went. I did. I traveled to the Maldives and waited it out there. And it was like it is now. It was curfew and people couldn't get around. And that sort of stillness, that sort of encapsulates the experience. This poem resonates for me in that sense.
So it really is a poem about how poetry can describe the impossibility and unsayability of crisis. Poetry is probably, I know you agree because you're a poet, poetry is the one venue, maybe painting or certain kinds of music, but poetry is one mode where we can actually say what it feels like to not know where to go, where to turn. Yeah?
Yeah, certainly.
So let's read the end of the poem, to close read the end of the poem. As far as you go in one direction, so it looks like we're going in one direction, all the further you'll have to go on, he adds that preposition on, it's awkward, right? All the further you'll have to go on before the way back has become totally indivisible. So what the hell?
So much going on there, because I think there's some interpretation of this as looking at kind of Robert Frost's Road as well, in the sense of
road not taken.
Yeah, and here it's the road taken. You go on this, but all the more you'd have to continue down that same road, that same whatever you want to fill in there as its meaning. And at one point you can't. When you look back, you no longer see a fork in the road. It's indivisible. So I wonder what, there could be positive connotations to that. There could be negative connotations to it. It's so bewildering and open.
Yeah.
So,
It's almost like a classic postmodern thought experiment come to reality. Can one imagine a place or a situation or a time when all of the digressiveness, disjunction, not knowingness, pathlessness, where are we going, I don't know-ness of poetry, of art becomes real?
Yeah. To me, that's then the poem in the sort of enjambment and the way the words are also talking about these movements happening as well. There's that, the poem in itself is kind of doing that.
Imaad, wow, I think we did a pretty good job with this poem in a short amount of time. I want to ask you for a final thought, and maybe it can be about a phrase or a word that you wanted to say something about, or a more general comment.
To me right now, when I see this poem, the word that's really sticking with me is restless, and how, though this world now that we are experiencing has sort of slowed down, there is this restlessness that still pervades in the world. And that's fascinating to me, this idea of both rest and restlessness happening at the same time. And we're coming at it from all three sides at once, you know.
Well said. My final thought has to do with the opening. It starts to be a story, you know, once upon a time, not long ago. But then it stops itself immediately to say, well, maybe it didn't happen. Maybe I dreamt it. And then another, or maybe I made it up. And then another, or have suddenly lost track of its train, meaning, I haven't even started telling the story, but maybe I made it up, maybe I dreamt it, maybe it's not real, and maybe it was real, but I lost track of it.
Yeah.
And the poem is a sonnet that never really gets started to say what it wants to say, and that is what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
That sense of being lost, profoundly lost. Imaad, thank you so much. The poem is Charles Bernstein's In a Restless World Like This Is, and this is Imaad Majeed. Do you want to tell people what your Instagram feed is, since you're an Insta poet?
Yeah, I'm at IMAADMAJEED on Instagram.
Thank you so much for joining us. This was great.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you liked this episode, watch another and subscribe.
And join us for ModPo, a free and open course at modpo.org.